right.
Insiders now saying Jeremy Fowler reports that Aaron Rodgers, many believe, has his eye on Minnesota, and that is why he hasn't signed with Pittsburgh. It's not just necessarily the personal reasons. I don't know it to be true, but I have speculated he's too smart to think Pittsburgh's a good fit. Burrow twice a year with better offensive teammates and a better offensive coach. Lamar Jackson in a better organization twice a year. Pittsburgh is a bunch of L's even with Aaron Rodgers, and I think he knows it.
Where Colin was...
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. This story I actually find more fascinating. I find Aaron Rodgers and the Vikings more fascinating because there still is that somewhat feeling that the Vikings are evaluating J.J. McCarthy. You know, either from a health standpoint, which I believe he's going to be fully healthy, but also just like, hey, are you ready to ball? This team is a great team. We built this team up. You saw what we did with Sam Darnold. You know, are you ready? You know, are you ready to lead us to victory? And that is a legitimate question mark that you don't have the answer for, J.J. McCarthy. You can make your predictions, and that's fine, but you have to concede you don't have the answer because you've never seen it. That's just the way this works. So it's not a value statement on JJ at all. But I do feel as though, you know, Aaron is doing this based off of like, kind of like, hey, we're going to wait. We're going to look and see what we have with JJ. If we're not happy enough, then we will potentially pull, you know, get a flyer on Aaron Rodgers. They were already considering him before. They decided to not. But it just feels as though that the door has not fully closed. If it truly was fully closed, then I don't think Aaron Rodgers would be waiting this out right now. This has to be based off of some information that Aaron is getting. And it's a shame because a statement like that triggers a lot of Minnesota Vikings fans. And they get really, really, really angry about it. And I've been covering this from the jump. And I've just had a sea of Vikings fans be like, no, this is ridiculous. This is not happening. This is not happening. This is not happening. This is nonsense. You know, and they're like, oh, this is all just for clicks and views and stuff like that. And, you know, the reality is, you know, sorry to tell Minnesota Vikings fans, but like, they don't move the needle that much, you know, not enough. I cover the Minnesota Vikings fans as much as I possibly can. And all last year, I had to pull clips from such obscure places, or to be like a sentence said by Nick Wright that just says, well, the Vikings aren't that good, and like that was it. That's all they said for the 2 hours on First Things First. And then I turned it into a clip, you know, and made it into a video for Minnesota Vikings fans to watch. And so it's just like, you know, they don't need the Minnesota Vikings and Aaron Rodgers to like drive up clicks and drive up views. It's just not there, quite frankly. So the fact that this story won't go away, to me, continues to signal me that there is so much more smoke there than meets the eye, and that there is still a part of the Minnesota Vikings franchise that's just kind of like, this team won a lot of games last year with Sam Darnold, and say what you will about Sam Darnold, at the very least he showed what an actual experienced veteran can do. And that is always the biggest issue with bringing in a first-year player, you know, a first-year starter, rookie. To me, J.J. McCarthy is a rookie. It's, you just don't have that experience. You just haven't been on the field. You just don't truly know how to execute the offense quite, you know, just yet. And so that is the legitimate question mark there around JJ, because he has not done it, you know, and you can believe that he will be able to do it, but we just know every rookie under the sun has growing pains. And because he got injured, he did not get to have this year off. Patrick Mahomes had his year off, but he was able to continue to develop. J.J. McCarthy simply was not. That's just the reality of the situation. It's not equivalent of him just sitting for a year and learning and growing. He wasn't able to work with the coaches. He wasn't able to evolve. Quite frankly, sure, they're going over film with him, but just not in the level that the Chiefs and Andy Reid were doing with Mahomes in that first year. You know, they just couldn't. Sam Darnold and that offense was going, and it was just like they couldn't look back, quite frankly. And I forget who said this. It might have been Hasselback, but they kind of talked about how it was just like, there's only so much time and there's only so many people to be able to kind of, go through this type of stuff with a player who's not playing, who's not starting, and unless it's like a real main priority. And it just, that wasn't the case. The last year when JJ went down, the priority wasn't necessarily to develop JJ at that point, because quite frankly, he was recovering, and that first month of recovery, there's only so much that he's able to do anyway, there. So, it's just a weird situation to be in. And so it makes sense. And if you're a Minnesota Vikings fan, you should be happy that your team wants to continue to leave no stone unturned, and that they are moving forward with JJ McCarthy, but they're not being so narrow-minded that they would refuse to pivot if they need, right? They are trying to do everything they can to put this team in a position to win, put this team and this franchise in a position to go the distance, to win a Super Bowl, to do it all, rather than an individual player. No individual player is ever bigger than the franchise itself. So again, I think this all ends up being a positive. I'm fascinated to see where it actually lands when we start to get more and more information out of just the NFL as a whole, where all these quarterbacks are, where all the teams are in terms of, preseason and all that type of stuff. And yeah, I mean, it's always hard to really get the reality of the situation. We get such beefed up, juiced up information from teams that are very excited, and the media that's very excited. And just go back to last year and you can go through all the teams that were ready to be, Justin Fields is electric, he is shocking everyone in the Pittsburgh Steelers camp. And now he's benched, right? Just like you always hear such exaggerated intent. Daniel Jones, this is the year he's gonna take off, or and it's always something. And so it is hard to really kind of parse out the reality from just generic media hype that is trying to get clicks and views for, in a manufactured way. So, you kind of have to fight through the mess right now. But I do not believe that this is just a one-sided, that the Vikings are just like, we're not interested in you. And Aaron's like, well, I'm just going to wait and hope for the best. I do not believe that to be the case. These are very, 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 very powerful people who are having real conversations about all of this. And again, Aaron's not really saying anything, which makes me believe that that's kind of adds even more validity to it, because if he was really kind of desperate, he would be kind of saying more stuff, and he's not. He is just kind of saying, I'm just waiting. I've essentially just been told to kind of just be on the sideline. Let's just wait a little bit to see what happens, and then we'll go from there. Because now even the Pittsburgh Steelers are kind of like, well, we're monitoring the situation with Kirk Cousins, etc., etc. So this feels a little messy right now, but it's typical off-season drama. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about the Minnesota Vikings and the Aaron Rodgers potential? I don't even know how to phrase it, but that they could potentially still connect, and Aaron Rodgers could be the quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings. Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions, let's get in some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We're building an amazing community here, and I absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be a part of. I think we're on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.